Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard and this is Lap of the World. You join us as we continue our seasonal racetrack rounds here in the United States. You may remember back in February we were chasing sunshine and warmer weather down in Palm Beach, Florida, but now we are seeking a break from the humidity, and we've gone a little bit further north to accomplish that, and we are in upstate New York, where we invite you to join us today as we explore New York Safety Track. The road trip to this racetrack took us and our trusty Acura NSX about 800 miles from our Tennessee home, up the Shenandoah Valley through the Pocono Mountains, and then deep into the Empire State. New York Safety Track, or NYST for short, lies about 50 miles west of Albany, just south of I-88 in what the maps say is the town of Jefferson. This circuit was conceived in 2011 and has been in operation since 2013. Getting a little trivia out of the way, if you were wondering about the name, it's because the facility was originally billed as, and one might assume likely pitched to the local planning boards as, a motorcycle-only rider training facility. These days, NYST definitely caters heavily to the two-wheeled crowd, but they also host numerous events for cars, hence our visit. Another statistical extreme that came to light, the safety track is the highest altitude track in the eastern half of the United States. Its tarmac draped over part of the northern end of the Appalachian mountain range. As you finish braking for turn 1, you're cresting just over 600 meters above sea level, or nearly 2,000 feet in elevation. Only Atlanta Motorsports Park on the other end of the Appalachian range comes close, at least on this side of the Mississippi. Arriving at New York Safety Track reminded me of pulling into a summer camp in the mountains back home, only there was a racetrack instead of a ropes course. After driving well out into the country on a small highway, we followed a sign in a cornfield that said racetrack, up some roads that didn't seem like we should be there, and we were eventually greeted by a mixed paddock area of paved parallel spots and some firm grass areas for parking and camping, a few normal parking spaces near the mural-adorned race control building, and a larger tarmac and gravel area that's spacious enough to accommodate at least modest car trailers. Facility-wise, the safety track isn't heavy on infrastructure, but you'll find the basics with at least ventilated if not climate-controlled restrooms, a large covered pavilion, and of course a hangar for your light aircraft. Now, I've driven road courses in ovals, road courses looped off of drag strips, and road courses normally used as fishing roads, but a road course looped off of an airstrip is a new one for me. NYST was in fact an active airfield before it became a racetrack. The wide front straight and adjacent row of wind-breaking pine trees predate the rest of the circuit. The track owners have kept their FAA designation though, so should you be inclined, flying into your track day could be an option, and I guess a pretty cool flex. Speaking of track days, our visit to NYST was facilitated by Brad and company at S2K Takeover and sanctioned by NETC. Thanks to all involved for the opportunity to drive this circuit as part of a double header, the second half of which was at Pineview Run Country Club, as you'll see in subsequent videos. Thanks as well to the staff and owners at New York Safety Track, who kept an eye on proceedings from their state-of-the-art control room to keep things safe, and put in a solid 2 hours of work to get us back on track after a large fluid spill that threatened the second half of our day. During this S2K Takeover event, we drove NYST in its quote-unquote uptown configuration, running counterclockwise headed uphill on the main straight. In this configuration, NYST stands at 2.2 miles with 18 turns jammed into that length. As a driving experience, I'm going to come straight out of the gate and tell you that of the 35 tracks that I've now driven, New York Safety Track may come the closest to simulating the experience of hooning an Appalachian mountain road in a sanctioned environment. Pick about 1.5 miles of your favorite sections from the Cherahalla Skyway back home, sand off the double yellows, and connect the ends with a half-mile straight, and that's pretty much what we have here. The elevation delta from the highest point to the lowest is 125 feet, or about the same as Road Atlanta. This is not a flat track, in case a section called Wheelie Hill that isn't only applicable to motorcycles wasn't a big enough hint. In fact, you gross a total of 450 vertical feet of change over the course of a given lap. It's a busy lap, as you might imagine then, as all of the 18 turns ask you to account for more than one axis of direction change, and that's before you even talk about this track's many subtle but significant camber changes. If you looked at an outline of NYST on a whiteboard and drew what you thought would be the racing line, you would probably be wrong 40% of the time on account of the elevation and camber changes that aren't evident on a 2D representation. That is a really long-winded way of saying that one day really isn't going to be enough to do much more than figure out which direction you're going to go at this track, but that's all I had to work with, so here we go. Your uptown lap of New York safety track begins on the airstrip as you climb towards turn 1. You can brake later than you think here on account of the slope, but don't leave it too late because it does flatten out on top. I was taking a very late apex into turn 1 and then tracking out to about mid-track here to set up for the 2-3 complex. In the 2-3 complex, I was deliberately staying a little bit off of the 2 apex in order to get a very late clip on turn 3 to carry a little more speed down towards turn 4. Turn 4 is really just kind of a blind crest before you brake for turn 5 just as you come over the top. That blends into turn 6, and your only job here is to set yourself up to go straight over the hill at the exit. This is Wheelie Hill. And get your wheel straight, put your mirror over this cone on the right, land straight, and then get back track right for the 8, 9, 10 complex. The best analogy I could draw here is if VIR's climbing S's went downhill, or maybe Maggots Beckett's Coates on a slope for you Brits. Coming in here to turn 11, you can carry more speed here than I did. There's more room on the outside, and you can kind of get straightened up here for your turn into 13. And this is an incredibly late apex. It's a very long turn. And then you're going to want to set up for a very late turn into, actually keep it kind of tight on turn 14. Then you're going to straight line it over here to 15 using a little piece of red tarmac on your right. Coming through 15, you're going to do a little, not even really too much on 16 here. You can actually do this flat in a mid-powered car. I did have a lift there. Before braking up here hill using the slope to slow yourself down and get back on the throttle as early as possible to carry as much speed as you can back down the airstrip front straight. That minute 44 and change isn't spectacular, but should give you an idea of what a halfway decent line looks like. Definitely not setting any records. With more laps and cooler conditions and some curb liberties taken, I could see at least low 140s in the car. That said, if you do want to see someone driving a production-based car really fast around NYST, I'll point you to Mark Petronas, who may still hold the 4-wheel track record. You can find a link to the story of his record attempt and completion in the description below. Our time off the track at NYST mainly consisted of trying to stay hydrated on a fairly hot day for the region, eating some pizza brought in by Brad and his wife for lunch, and chatting with some of the others in attendance. That included an NSX owner that was driving a GR86 on the day, and another fellow track chaser who told me about this event. That's his backup Subaru that you'll see more of in our upcoming Pine View Run series, as well as, I'm sure you could assume, a number of S2000 owners. Everyone played very nicely in the open track format, and the whole situation made for a very pleasant day out in a very pretty, if not very populous, area of New York. If you want to see more driving around NYST, stay tuned for our Just the Laps installment. And if you want more logistical details about visiting the track and the local area, we will also have a how-to video forthcoming that will have those details. For the meantime, though, thanks for watching our track feature on NYST, New York Safety Track. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment if I missed anything, and subscribe if you don't want to miss the next track we visit. Until then, though, I'm Richard, this is Lap of the World, and we will see you in the next video, if not at the track.